Hello, I'm Victoria, design engineer on the Spectacles team. We've been so inspired by all the amazing lenses that you've built so far, and we know how crucial it is to bring your ideas to life fast. This is why we've built Interactable Helper, a no-code prototyping tool that is used daily by designers and engineers here at Snap. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to use Interactable Helper together with Spectacles Interaction Kit interactable component events to build low to medium fidelity prototypes in minutes with no coding. So let's dive in and see how Interactable Helper can supercharge your workflow. So let's open Lens Studio and let's go into Home, Spectacles, Base Template. When the project loads, let's go into Asset Library, Spectacles, and let's find Interactable Helper. Once the Interactable Helper package shows up in the Packages dropdown, let's open it up. Let's add the examples prefab into the scene. It contains all the features Interactable Helper supports. But first, let's see how Interactable Helper is set up. The scene object should contain a physics collider and interactable component. However, if you don't add those, Interactable Helper will instantiate them during runtime. So here we have a physics collider and Interactable Helper. Interactable Helper gives you access to interactable component events: hover enter, hover exit, pinch down, and pinch up. Under each event, you can create an event response type to control scene objects. So let's go over the features. Set state and toggle are similar. Set state allows you to control scene object's enabled state. Simply add a scene object into the inspector, choose set state, and you can choose whether you want to set it on or off. Optionally, you can also add a delay. Here in the example, the green box will appear on hover enter and disappear on hover exit. In the toggle example, we have the green box starting in an off state. Interactable Helper will switch the state of that scene object. Here on pinch down, we can see that the green box turns on. And if we do that again, it will toggle the state back to off. Transform animation feature lets you control position, rotation, and scale of a scene object. Let's see how this pink box is configured in the inspector. Here I have scale pink box as my scene object, transform animation as event response type. In the animation type, you can choose scale, move, or rotate, local or world. Then you can also choose play option. You can play from current value, play the animation every time from start to end, or toggle between two values. Here, you can set end value, animation duration, delay, easing, and also you can configure more actions on animation start and on animation complete. Simply enable an event and choose the action type. You can choose by entering a custom callback or setting state of another or the same scene object. And you can repeat the same setup for on-complete event. On hover enter, the pink box scales up, and on hover exit, it scales down. You can also stack transform animations. In this example, I'm adding movement and rotation with some delay. Let's see how it works. On click, the box rotates and moves up. And also you can notice in play option, I have toggle enabled, which means if I click again, the box will return to its original value. If you're working with 3D objects that contain animations, you can store those animations in Animation Player. Interactable Helper can control those animations. Simply add a scene object with Animation Player, choose Custom Animation, and add the name of the animation that you want to play. So let's see how it works. On click, the elephant is going to do the jump animation. Let's move on. The iteration feature lets you loop through scene objects under a set parent. Simply put your options under one scene object and add it into the Interactable Helper inspector, and choose Iterate through Children, Event Response Type. Let's see how it works. On every click, I'm going to iterate through every children of that parent scene object, and then go back. We've created two features that control materials. First one controls material properties. Let's see how it's set up here. On a scene object with a render mesh, I have a material called pink with property that has two properties exposed as parameters. One is called red value, and another is called green value. I put them into Interactable Helper as property names under material property animation. I set value type to float. You can also choose vector3 or vector4 properties. Configure the animation parameters: start value, end value, animation duration, delay, easing, and start and complete events too. So in this example, I'm controlling two values with a delay. Let's see how it works here. So when I click the button, the values are going to change one after the other. A more commonly used example would be base color. It supports image component, render mesh visual component, and text component. Here, when you use material-based color animation, you can set the end color and configure animation parameters. Very useful for fading out images and texts. You can also add custom behaviors. Choose custom callback, add the reference to a scene object with a script you want to use, and type in the name of the function you want to execute. Here, change text will change the text from meow to wolf. Interactable Helper can also control blend shapes on 3D objects. Simply add a scene object with a render mesh visual that contains the blend shape. Add the name of the blend shape and configure the animation parameters. Here, elephant's ears are set to a blend shape and will shrink and grow. If you want to add sound to your lens, you can choose Play Audio Clip feature. Reference the scene object with an audio component on it. Configure the audio control behavior. You can choose to play it once, play and stop, or play and pause. You can also control video texture playback with Interactable Helper. Simply reference a scene object with image component that contains video as its texture. Reference it here in the inspector. Choose Play Video Texture and configure video texture control. You can play it once or loop. This was the overview of the features, and now let's build something from scratch. Let's try building a simple UI button. Let's create a scene object, add an image component to it. This is going to be our base plane. Let's duplicate that image and call it outline. Let's duplicate the material. Assign the material and assign the texture. Let's add a scene object that's going to contain our Interactable Helper and Physics Collider. Let's choose the box type, disable fit visual, and configure the size of the box. Let's enable show collider so that we can see it in the preview. And I'm going to set the Z to a little bit less. Now, let's nest all these scene objects under one parent and move the parent a little bit forward. Let's adjust the size of the button to be a little bit bigger. And because we're going to be animating the plane, I want to rotate the object a little bit so we can see that. So let's add like 15 degrees of rotation. Great. Now we're ready to add our Interactable Helper. So let's add an event response type to hover enter, reference the outline, choose base color animation, and set the color to 100% opacity white. Let's configure the animation duration to be 0.3 seconds, and let's set the easing to quadratic out. Let's also make sure that our start value is set to 0. Let's see how it works. On hover enter, the outline fades in. Now let's make sure we fade it out on hover exit. Let's reference the outline again, choose base color, and set the end color to be white with 0% opacity. Let's match our animation configurations. And let's see what we got. Hover enter, hover exit. Great. Let's add a little bit of plane movement when we hover over the button. Again, we're going to go into the hover enter block, add value, reference the base plane, choose transform animation, and start configuring our animation. We use move local, and we're going to move the plane just a little bit forward on hover enter. Matching the animation parameters. Let's check how it works. On hover enter, the plane moves forward. Let's add a counter movement on hover exit. So it's going to move back to Z0. Let's see. Hover enter, hover exit. Great. Let's also add pinch down visual feedback. On pinch down, I want to change the color of the base plane. I'm gonna use material base color animation and set the color to yellow. Let's see how it works. Hover enter, pinch down, hover exit. When I pinch down, I also want the base plane to move back to kind of represent the movement. Referencing the base plane again, adding transform animation, configuring move local back to 0 over the same animation parameters. Hover enter, pinch down, hover exit. What is left, I think, is setting the base plane back to color white. On hover exit, let's go back to the hover exit block and add another value. Base plane, base color, back to white at 100% opacity with the same animation parameters. So let's see the end result. Hover enter, pinch down, hover exit. And that's a wrap on our Interactable Helper tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me. You now have everything you need to build interactive lenses faster. We can't wait to see what you make, so be sure to share your creations and feedback with the community. Happy creating, and see you in the next video.